Hi, I'm Rachel Lancaster, and this is the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. This is where we celebrate women in midlife and beyond. We challenge the status quo and bash those negative stereotypes about being an older woman. We're not over the hill at 40, 50, 60. We're just getting started, and the world needs us now more than ever. I'll be talking all things midlife and sharing some fabulous stories of amazing women doing very cool stuff. Now's our time. My guest today is Jane Evans, and Jane is a very, very interesting woman. I met her on Twitter quite recently, which is a very cool place to meet people. She had a 30-year career in advertising, and she'll tell us a bit about that. But most importantly, she has set up something quite incredible, the Uninvisibility Project. And many of us women, we have a little bit of a problem with being invisible, don't we? As we get into this stage of life. Jane is campaigning to change all of that. So she's definitely on my wavelength. Jane, why did you decide to do this?
Because I became invisible. I took a 2-year break from my career to go and study storytelling and screenwriting. Came back and was totally and completely and utterly ignored by the industry, even though they said that they were calling out for female creative leaders.
It's just outrageous, isn't it? Oh, makes my blood boil.
For me, it was quite shocking because, you know, everything that I've ever gone through in my life, the one thing that I'd always been able to rely on was my talent. So to find that, you know, after a massively successful career, that my talent didn't actually count for anything anymore and my experience didn't count for anything more, and that I was just supposed to go away and disappear, just absolutely astonished me. And what happened was I started looking around. So my first question was, I put it out on Twitter and I said, are there any women actually over the age of 50 that are making the ads in London? And I think I got 8 names, and 4 of them agreed to meet me for a cup of tea. And when I spoke to them, they all had such amazing stories that weren't about advertising at all. There were stories of breast cancer, there were stories of, you know, legal action, single motherhood. And so I just thought, well, hold on a minute, if these women's stories are so interesting, who else is out there? So I just started going and finding, first of all, with my friends and the people that I know, and then, you know, everybody that I would interview and tell their story would go, oh, you've got to meet such and such, she's remarkable, and you've got to go and meet this person, she's remarkable. And that's really how it's grown. So we've been going since March, and we've now got 19 women on the site, and a list of people ready to go and shoot and hear their stories.
It's fantastic. I just love it. I love what you've done, and in such a short space of time, because you clearly know what you're doing on the advertising and promotion front, don't you? You clearly.
Well, I do laugh because it was like basically from the moment I put that first tweet up saying, you know, are there women and any women over 50? It took me 40 days to find the women, photograph them, tell their stories, build the website, and build up a social media following to be able to launch. And that was 40 days. And I joke that most advertising agencies wouldn't have even got in that amount of time, which again is one of the things that we're saying about this project is, you know, we want to make older women both visible and more valuable to society. And, you know, we damn well know what we're doing. So, you know, give us a project and we'll just get it done, and there won't be any time wasting, and, you know, so we can achieve amazing things, which we should be passing on to the younger generations, which we're not. And there's great skill base that is being lost out of prejudice to older women.
And the workplace in general just isn't, you know, even if you're in the workplace, I don't find that it's a very welcoming place for older women. Once we get to a certain age, I think any workplace well, not any, but a lot of them become quite just not very friendly towards us.
Look, it's societal, and it goes back thousands of years. You know, once a woman's raised her family, she has no further use to society, which is why we're supposed to disappear off into the woods or, you know, get burned at the stake. That was when, you know, sort of like 50 or 60 was our life expectancy. I mean, there was a report the other day that said healthy baby boomers are going to live to 120. And I mean, I joke that, I've been middle-aged forever, because when I was 35, the life expectancy was 70. Well, now I'm 56, and now I haven't even reached middle age yet. So, we have to completely redefine not only women's careers, all careers. This is particularly important for women, because I see so many young women making life decisions out of fear of losing their career or fear of having to be superwoman. And if we actually extended a career from 25 to 75, easily take some time out. They don't have to be doing everything full board. And I always say to them, you can have everything, but not at once. And if we could actually get that sort of attitude out of there, that our careers are so long, you can actually take a few years, weeks, 2 years, 20 years, however long you want for child rearing, you should be allowed to do that.
And we all know, I mean, we're certainly learning, even though, you'll sometimes see a 45-year-old woman giving birth and everybody thinks, oh, it's possible. But, I know myself that it's not. And I think if we can encourage or enable women to feel able to have children younger without then sacrificing their career, because at the moment, I think we've got it just the wrong way round, haven't we? It's like you have to do your career first. So as you say, you go full pelt at it, you exhaust yourself, you probably mess up your fertility doing it, then you try and have children and it doesn't work, and then you get all sort of stuck in the middle. But what about if you could have your children in your 20s, no problem at all, and then you have your career? It'd be great, wouldn't it?
It'd be great. Or you have your career till 35, you get as high as you possibly can, and then you coast for a few years, and then you come back at the same level. But, the only jobs that are available for women over 50 are menial jobs. They say when you're pregnant, all you ever see is pregnant women. It's like when you become invisible, all you see is invisible women. And, just in the last few weeks, I've heard stories of a film director who is, looking after an Alzheimer's patient because that's the only work that she can get. A high city financier facing eviction. An ex-TV presenter going for jobs as a maid, because, we still have a roof over our heads. We still have children to feed. But, the only jobs that seem to be available are those low-paying jobs. And when they do reintroducing, what are they called, returnships, they're basically internships. So no matter how far you've got or what you've done, you go back in for a short training course and then go and work on minimum wage on a placement. Which I sort of say, if a man took a few years off to go and climb a mountain or explore the world,
find himself,
he would come back in exactly the same position that he left. And so motherhood is just totally undervalued. And it shouldn't be. It's like, it should actually be seen as a business skill. I mean, I joke that, if you can run a family, you can run a small business. If you can run the PTA, you can run a Forbes 500.
But I reckon, it's not just motherhood. I think it is this insidious combination of ageism and sexism, isn't it? Because women who are not mothers encounter exactly the same thing. They may have not taken an obvious break in the same way, but they're still subject to the same ageism as they get a bit older, and the same feelings of, losing their relevance within the workplace, because society says that we lose our relevance full stop as we age, doesn't it?
But that's because we're going with an old paradigm. And most people are actually talking about our mothers, not us. And we're the first generation that legally could go into the workforce. We were the first generation that could go into careers that were previously barred to us. We were the pioneers. And again, this is one of the real strengths of the Uninvisibility Project. One of the things that we're really promoting is we've got to pioneer still. It's like, and that's why we're attracting, we're sort of building the Uninvisibility Project almost from the top to the bottom. Is, we actually are working with the pioneers that were the first ones in on careers and saying we haven't finished the job yet. Women below us are still complaining about all the things that we fought off, and we've gone a long way. We've done an awful lot, but this is still unknown territories. Nobody's designed the second half of women's careers.
No.
So, and again, all of us that had the first half, God, it was hard. It was a really tough first half. We were beaten to a pulp, and it was hard and it was tough, but we survived and we're still here. But not only are we still here, but we're full of energy. We're probably more confident than we've ever been. And again, it's like for every single woman I talk to of this age goes, this is the most powerful time in a woman's life.
Yes.
And if we could get younger women looking forward to getting older.
Just today, I saw an article that was being shared around that had been in The Guardian about the situation in Australia. And I saw some commentary on that as well, that it's even worse in Australia, but that women, because they can't get the work from like 45 up, it's just awful. And then they're ending up in abject poverty. And that just doesn't make sense. And as you say, you know, women who were at the top of their game and then are on the scrap heap. It really is. I'm totally with you. Let's get in the trenches and just...
We've got to get back and fight. Yeah, things are really bad in Australia. And the worst thing about Australia is the rise in homelessness. It's like women over 50 are the biggest rise in homelessness. But in the UK, we're the biggest rise in successful suicides. And, you know, and I don't think we have the same housing situation because we do have much better public housing. But the pension situation for women our age is horrendous. 48% of women in general do not have a pension. Nobody's actually given the figures for women over 50 because I think they're going to be way too scary, because frankly, every woman I've spoken to so far hasn't got more than a year's worth of pension saved away. None of them. And so, you know, in 20 years' time, we're going to be facing a crisis in this country if, you know, sort of half of the population haven't got enough to live on. They're going to be living in poverty. So it's absolutely essential that we carry on working. And, you know, one of the things that really annoys me is that everybody talks about the millennials and the future for the millennials. And what they say is it's going to be, careers are going to be multiple careers with lifelong learning. And so again, one of the things the Uninvisibility Project wants to say is, well, let's start with us. We're used to pioneering. We're used to building the future. So if that's the future of the careers, start with us. We've already had one, maybe two. Sometimes, you know, some of us have had three. So let us pioneer. If this is what you say is going to be the future for millennials, don't wait another 20 years for them. Start with us now, and you'll actually solve a number of the social problems that are actually going to hit the country.
Ashton Applewhite, who I recently interviewed, talks about it's not this silver tsunami of trouble, it's this silver reservoir of wonderfulness, you know, and of so much capacity and capability and knowledge and experience. And also, I would add that post-menopause, we have a different hormonal profile, and that makes us different people. It makes us much more on a par with men. We are not governed by estrogen going up and down all over the place all the time, and we can do big stuff. But I think also we have to learn to believe that and not buy into those narratives that have just been fed forever, haven't they?
But also one of the greatest powers of being post-menopause is the lack of sexual objectification. And again, if we were in the workplace, we could actually teach the workplace how to do work without any sexual objectification. So again, we could really be doing a favor for the younger women. So, you know, when men deal with us on a very one-to-one, very, you know, the way they relate to us in business changes dramatically. And so, you know, and if we could get that happening with younger men and younger women, that, you know, 9 to 5 in the office, your gender makes absolutely no difference, would make all the, it would make all the difference in the world to both young and old. And, you know, again, that's what we're saying about the Uninvisibility Project is, you know, we really are here to sort of like set a new way of doing things for the younger people.
So where do you see it going? How are you actually going to do that?
Okay, so our first plan is just to make older women visible. So initially we're just starting off by telling stories. So, you know, we started off very much on a bootstrap. So, you know, it's a website and photographs and stories and a social media campaign. We're about to start making films. And, you know, sort of content to put all over the web and for people to share, which are going to be, you know, lots of different positive, but, you know, quite shocking pieces of communication to actually start, you know, shocking this generation into sort of growing up, actually, and coming into their power and, you know, sort of, moving forward with the movement. Eventually what we want to do is actually create a new way of building businesses for women. So we actually want to start doing hackathons. We want to bring women into AI and tech, because I started doing mentoring for teenagers in hackathons. And when I first went in there, I was like, I'm going to be useless at this because I know nothing about tech. And I walked in there and it was like, you don't need to know anything about tech. What you need to know is what the applications of this tech are. Now, most of this new tech is actually going to aging and health. And so we have an incredibly important voice in this. So we actually want to take on the bro startup culture and build a matriarchal, collaborative way of starting new businesses. So that's down the line, but we're going to need some investment and more followers and.
So what advice do you have for a woman in midlife or beyond who is beginning to feel that she is invisible?
Don't buy it. Don't buy it. It's like, first of all, make sure you've got a really good sisterhood around you because they adore you. They think you're amazing. So they're your cheer squad. Don't believe anybody else in the world other than those people close to you that know who you are and what you're capable of. And don't be afraid to be a bit nasty. It's like, you don't be afraid to have a bit of attitude because, earlier in your careers or earlier in your life when you showed attitude, you probably got rebuffed because there was some element of sexuality in it. But when you actually reach this age, a bit of you get some gravitas. It's like, people actually start to take attention to you. So don't be afraid of speaking up. Don't be afraid of speaking out, and never be afraid of standing up for yourself.
It's a lot about confidence, isn't it? I mean, I often say that, if we're standing hunched and if we're, standing back because we feel we're taking up too much space, then yes, we might be invisible. But if we stand up and we, as you say, we move forward and we don't take any nonsense and we don't take any crap, then we don't have to believe what we think in here. Just because we think it doesn't make it true, does it?
Also, the other thing is actually acknowledge each other. I mean, I find it really quite interesting that sort of on the tube, you'll notice the other invisible woman and you'll sort of look over at each other and there's these sort of micro expressions that, great pants, but you don't actually say it. And one of the things that I've noticed is that we're starting to talk to each other. It was like I was standing on Waterloo Bridge the other day and this older woman walked past me and went, "Great pants, well worn," like this. And I think, one of the things that we can do to help other invisible women is when we see each other, acknowledge it and say something.
I love that idea. Yes, let's start that campaign. I like that.
Just, great shoes, love your hat. Fantastic lipstick, all of those things, just to say, if nobody else is noticing you, acknowledge that we notice you.
Susie Grant, who I've also interviewed as well, of Alternative Aging, she has a very quirky sense of style, amazing, and it's very vintage. And she says that when she's out and about and she sees another vintage lady, they always acknowledge each other. There's always a nod or a smile or "Oh wow, where did you get that?" So yeah.
Yeah, I think we should do more of it. And also, go and have a cup of tea with somebody. That Facebook friend that you've never met or that person that does the same job at you somewhere else. There's always people on the periphery of your friends list that you sort of know, but you've never actually spent any time with. It's like, go and have a cup of tea with them. It's like, if you're feeling invisible, go and find somebody else because they're probably feeling invisible too. And there's this amazing sort of release from it. I found even from doing this campaign, it's almost like tag you're it.
We all think it's just us, don't we?
Yeah. Again, the patriarchy has been designed for us to fail. And, one of the greatest things that the patriarchy did was create female competition.
Oh, yes.
It has been the biggest damage to all of us. Yeah. Now, I say, look, we all got here. God knows how. It was like there was no rules. We were playing on the slanted pitch with the sun in our eyes. It was like none of us really knew what we were doing. And, it was like, some women did things in our careers that we wouldn't have done ourselves, or we were in competition. But I sort of say, look, we've all made it. We're all here. It was like, let's forget how we got here. And it's like, let's build on, sort of now we've got a sisterhood, and now, we can actually stick our heads up and say that we're feminists. Let's stick together and move this forward. Even the ones who never claimed to be a feminist up until this point, because that's fine.
That's one of the things Ashton said, actually, that when women compete to look younger, we reinforce the sexism, we reinforce the ageism, we reinforce the patriarchy, and it does us no good.
Look, there is not a wrinkle cream on this planet that will get rid of wrinkles. They are all 90% water with some powder and maybe some light reflecting particles. So first of all, if women just went and bought a home brand or a ball cream or something like that, they would have money in their pensions, which annoys the crap out of me that they don't. But also, we know that the only way that you can look younger is by surgery or having your face burnt off with lasers, whatever it is. It's an awful lot of pain. You don't actually look any younger. You just look like you have had work. And so, and also most facelifts only happen for women in their 40s because it's the fear of aging. It was like what seems to happen when you get past 50 is you sort of accept the inevitable. And I know for me, I'm fascinated by what my face is doing. I'm not afraid of my wrinkles at all. I actually really love them. And it was like, I think it was Lauren Bacall was like, your whole life shows on your face. And it was like, I really love that about it. I was actually at a party for Goldie magazine the other day, and they had their 84-year-old supermodel, the woman that they just...
Oh, yes, Beata, is that right?
Beata, who was just modelling, a lovely, beautiful lady.
Amazing.
And apparently they'd organised a thing for her to go and do a television interview with her and somebody who had had surgery. So it was aging naturally versus not aging naturally.
Yeah.
And the person who'd had plastic surgery didn't show up. And I wondered whether they'd actually Googled her.
And seen how glorious she was.
And again, I think, when you're in your 40s, it's like you're worried about trying to stay in your 40s. But, if you look at women in their 80s, the ones that haven't had the work are stunningly beautiful. The ones that have look a bit strange, unless they've had the money that Jane Fonda's had, or, the movie stars that, have spent what we'd earn in a lifetime on their skin.
But it's that idea, isn't it, that we just believe that beauty is reserved for the young. I've actually done a video about this, and I talk about it a lot, because to me, I think beauty is completely ageless. I think some, older women are, as you say, stunningly beautiful. I mean, one of the most beautiful people on the planet for me is 100. That's Tao Porchon Lynch, the yogi, and I've met her twice in real life, and they were just such magical days for me. But she just exudes beauty to me. I mean, physically I find her beautiful, but also it's beauty that just radiates out of her.
It's just a glow. And it's again, looking at these, meeting all of these women, it's like they just glow. It's just this inner beauty that shines out. And when they say that beauty's skin deep, it's like it really does show when the skin starts drooping a bit just how much it is. But again, one of the things that we want to do is to change that language.
Exactly.
So we want to say that the visible signs of aging are experience, wisdom, and empathy. It's not about our wrinkles. It's not about the way that we look. And, if you're concerned about growing old, I mean, one of the things I always sort of say is, give up being pretty. Build an image for yourself that's you. It's like when it's not always about how you look or how you conform to normal beauty, go get a sense of style that absolutely suits you. Take a few risks in the clothes that you wear. It doesn't always you don't have to look like the women in the magazines. You can be you. And I think this sort of second half of life is a great opportunity to actually look at who you are and who you want to be for the next 50 years rather than who you've been for the last 50.
Well, you've only got to look at Iris Apfel, haven't you? I mean, she's just incredible in her 90s.
Yeah, unfortunately, the fashion people seem to have gone, that's the look for older women. And so I sort of call it, the colourful bag lady look. Where, and it's fantastic for her, but, it was like, I want to see more images of what older beauty is rather than just that, it's just her. We don't all wear patterns and tons of jewelry. I see women in biker jackets and, jeans. And I mean, for me, I sort of go a bit punk and, it's like, I think it's an opportunity to express who you are without it necessarily being the stereotype. So for me, it's an artistic creation, a chance to reinvent yourself.
But I also, I love older skin. I like the wrinkles. I like my wrinkles. I don't have any problem with my wrinkles. I don't want to look any younger. I just want to look as good as I can look.
That's right. And that should be the message for everybody at every age, is be the best that you can be.
Yeah.
But particularly at this age, it's like, I mean, the whole concept that the beauty companies are still saying anti-aging is just beyond me, because we've got to change that to pro-aging.
Exactly.
We've got to change it to, this is something to look forward to. I mean, and, again, I joke, but last week or the week before, there was a 3D laser printed heart from somebody's own genetic material.
Yeah.
And, it says at the moment we're going to live till 120. Well, with the advances in medicine, that could go up to 200. So enjoy it. Enjoy the time that you've got, and and take your time.
I think 200 is a bit of a way off, though, isn't it? Don't you think?
Well,
it's not going to happen in my lifetime, I don't think.
Well, if they're already printing body parts, that means sort of like that nobody's going to die of a heart attack. If they can cure cancer, then, so put it like this: tech is certainly working really, really, really hard to make sure that we live as long as humanly possible. So, if it's gone from 70 to 120 in our lifetimes, it's not actually beyond the realms of possibility that we could be looking at 200 years.
What brings you joy?
What brings me joy? Really knowing my stuff. And also knowing myself on a lot of things. They say it takes 10,000 hours to master something. Well, that's actually 5 years. So, at our age, I've mastered a lot of things. So there's a great sense of accomplishment, but also this real sense of, I haven't really done it yet. Whatever I was here put on this earth to do, haven't done it yet. So for me, there's a great excitement in, all right, now's the next stage. Now I'm going to do it.
I think that is, if women can get over the anxiety about getting older, and if they can embrace it, I think, as you say, there is that. For me, there's an enormous excitement about now and what I'm going to do. And there's a statistic flying around that companies started by women over 50 are more successful than other
2.2 times more likely to succeed than started by a 30.
Well, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
And there's also a report out that say that women over 55 make the best bosses. So, and I don't think this is actually going to be a difficult thing to enable, because what I've found is, and particularly talking to men, and particularly talking to men at the top of organizations, is they all of a sudden go, oh my goodness, we didn't notice. Oh, what do we do to this right? It's almost as if it's sort of happened without anybody noticing. And, and they feel absolved from it because it's so societal rather than within individual companies. And it's like, I saw a man a few weeks ago who was the head of a major law firm. And I thought at the time that he was sort of boo-booing what I said a bit. But 2 days later, I got an email from him going, oh my goodness, Jane, I've met 3 women in the last 2 days that are in exactly the same situation as you're in. Brilliant. So again, in the same way as with the women, I'm sort of saying, tag, it's you. It's also happening with the men, is that they're seeing it, their eyes are opening up to it. And when you say that there's this massive pool of talent out there, they really start getting excited, because if you've got this much life experience, it doesn't take a lot to train. So you don't need to go back and do a 3-year law degree or a 3-year degree to go and do something. Companies could actually put in sort of like mini MBAs for these women and get them back up to speed in a very short amount of time. And so again, that's one of the things that we want to encourage is, women that have left for whatever reason, I can think, can you imagine in finance and in trading floors, how many women left in their early 30s because they just couldn't handle the toxic male environment anymore? In advertising, particularly in the highly competitive careers where, the women were really in the scrum, a lot of them left and a lot of them went off to do other things. It was like, go find them. They're still out there. If you, there's ways of bringing them back, or retraining them to do other things, or accepting that motherhood is actually a business skill, and bringing women back in. So I think that it should be a real force to bring them back in, because they've got so much to offer.
And as you say about studying and learning new things, one of the things we have learned is time management. We know how to manage our time so that we can get what we want done.
Absolutely. And, and if we've had children, our negotiation skills are through the roof. If anybody can get a 6-year-old to eat broccoli, you can get a client to do anything. We're used to having however many people are in our families' diaries and whole lives in our head as well as our own. And again, it was like, these startups, when they say that, startups with 50-year-olds are more successful, why don't all these young startups put an older woman on the thing who's got some sense, who's going to be quite willing to do the unsexy stuff? Because that's usually the problem with these young startups is everybody wants to do the fun stuff, but nobody actually does the grown-up stuff. So, why not, when you're starting up a startup, a grown-up in there to begin with?
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. It would really help me get the message out and inspire more women to feel empowered in midlife and beyond if you left me a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you may be listening to this. And share this podcast with your friends too. If you'd like to take your own midlife up a notch, why not join our members club? It's where you'll find the strategies, support and connection you need to live the very best next phase of life. You can find out more and get the show notes for this episode at magnificentmidlife.com. Help me change the world one midlife woman at a time.